It was a crisp Monday morning, the kind where the air carried the perfect blend of freshness and anticipation. 14-year-old Jasmine Porter strode into the grand oaked bank, her school uniform neatly pressed, a simple blazer, skirt, and loafers that made her look both polished and poised. Yet, despite her composed exterior, a nervous energy buzzed beneath the surface. Today was a milestone. It would be her first time making a solo bank deposit, and not just any deposit. This was her $5,000 academic scholarship check, a reward for her relentless hard work and dedication. Holding the check felt like holding proof of everything she had achieved, a symbol of both her independence and the bright future she was building for herself. She inhaled deeply, steadying her nerves, and approached the teller counter, clutching a folder filled with all the necessary documents. This was supposed to be simple, straightforward. Hand over the check, get it deposited, and walk out with the satisfaction of handling her own finances. But nothing about what happened next would be simple. Behind the counter, Victoria Hayes, the bank manager, stood observing. She was a woman in her late 40s, dressed in sharp, professional attire that exuded authority. Everything about her, her posture, the way she carried herself, spoke of someone who expected to be respected, someone who made judgments within seconds. As soon as Jasmine handed over the check, Victoria's well-practiced customer service smile faltered, her expression tightening ever so slightly. $5,000. Victoria's voice rose, just enough for the nearby customers to hear. For a student your age. Her eyebrows lifted as she held up the check, eyes narrowing with suspicion. Where did this come from? Jasmine felt the heat rise to her cheeks, but she steadied herself. She wasn't going to let doubt creep in, not now. Clearing her throat, she spoke with as much confidence as she could muster. "It's my academic scholarship," she said, keeping her voice firm despite the tremble in her hands. She quickly produced her school ID and the award letter, placing them neatly in front of the teller. "I have all the proper documentation." The young teller, a man named Tom, took the check from her, his neutral expression shifting almost instantly. Suspicion flickered across his face as he held the paper up to the light, tilting it this way and that as if searching for something. Anything. The way he inspected it felt less like standard procedure and more like a silent accusation. Seconds stretched into what felt like minutes. He turned to Victoria, who had been watching intently, her skepticism only growing. Victoria stepped forward, not even glancing at Jasmine. "We've had a lot of fraudulent checks lately," she muttered, her tone carrying an unmistakable edge. "I'll need to verify this." Jasmine's stomach twisted. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She had expected a quick deposit, not an interrogation. Her heart pounded as she glanced down at her bag, a sudden realization hitting her like a punch to the gut: her phone. She had left it in her school locker. I need to call my mom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper at first, then stronger. "She's expecting me home soon. I don't have a phone with me." Victoria barely looked at her. "That's not our problem," she replied curtly, her words cold, dismissive. "You'll wait until we finish our verification process." The words hit Jasmine like a slap. "Wait. How long?" Jasmine stood motionless as Victoria turned away, arms crossed, an air of satisfaction about her, as if she had just put a troublemaker in their place. Around the bank, the normal hustle and bustle continued, but for Jasmine, everything felt different. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes on her, the hushed whispers of other customers. Some stole quick glances in her direction, their faces unreadable. Others didn't even try to hide their judgment. The minutes dragged on. The marble floor beneath her feet felt colder with each passing second. Jasmine clenched her hands into fists, forcing herself to remain still, but inside, frustration bubbled like a storm. She had always been observant, always noticed how people were treated in different situations. Some were met with warm smiles, immediate assistance. Others were made to wait, scrutinized, questioned as if their presence alone was a problem. She had seen it before, but today she was living it. From across the room she caught a murmur, Victoria speaking to Tom in a hushed, almost conspiratorial tone. "I'm telling you," Victoria said, her voice just loud enough for Jasmine to catch. "We need to maintain our standards here. We can't just let anyone walk in and expect to be treated like they belong." The words struck Jasmine deep, cutting through her like ice. She wasn't being doubted because of the check. It wasn't about bank policy. It was about something else. Something she had always known existed but had never personally felt so blatantly before. Her heart pounded. She wanted to say something to demand they stop treating her like she was some kind of fraud, but she swallowed the urge. Her father had always taught her to stay calm, to remain composed no matter the situation. But right now it felt impossible. She had earned that scholarship. She had worked for it. And yet, here she was, standing alone, being made to feel like she didn't deserve what was rightfully hers. Time crawled forward. Every glance at the clock only made her anxiety worse. Her mother would be expecting her soon. She needed to find a way to let her know what was happening, but without her phone, she was trapped. In the far corner of the bank where Jasmine stood, the weight of the moment pressed down on her like an invisible force. The cold marble floor beneath her feet felt even icier now, as if the very foundation of this place wanted to push her out. The rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall wasn't just marking time. It was amplifying her sense of isolation, each second stretching longer than the last. People came and went, engaged in quiet conversations or tapping their shoes impatiently as they waited in line. Yet not a single person spoke to her. She wasn't just being ignored. She was being erased, reduced to nothing more than an unwanted presence in the middle of the busy bank. A ghost. A source of silent judgment. Jasmine's gaze flickered toward the other customers, and what she saw made her stomach twist. A well-dressed elderly couple entered, their presence immediately acknowledged with warmth and respect. Victoria Hayes, the same woman who had treated Jasmine with cold skepticism, practically glided across the floor to greet them. With an air of practiced charm, she personally escorted them to a VIP section, speaking to them in hushed, reverent tones. Not once, not even for a second, had Jasmine received that kind of treatment. It was like she didn't exist. Like she didn't belong in this gleaming world of polished marble and mahogany desks. Then, a young man stepped forward at the counter, his accent thick as he carefully handed over his paperwork. Jasmine wasn't the only one watching. Victoria had been eyeing him too, her expression instantly shifting into something rigid and unwelcoming. Her response was immediate, dismissive. "Sorry, the system is running slow today. It'll take a while to process your request." Her voice was flat, indifferent, like she had already decided that he wasn't worth her time. Jasmine watched as the man hesitated, frustration flashing across his face before he sighed and turned away. He had no choice but to leave, his shoulders heavy with defeat. But barely a minute later, a white couple approached the counter with nearly identical paperwork in hand. And just like that, Victoria transformed. Her entire demeanor changed, her smile brightened, her posture straightened, and she practically beamed at them. "Of course. Let me take care of that for you right away," she said smoothly, ushering them forward with enthusiasm. "You're in good hands here." Jasmine's chest tightened. Her fingers curled into fists at her sides, nails pressing into her palms. It wasn't just bad customer service. It wasn't a simple mistake. This was something far worse, something deliberate, something sinister. Victoria was choosing who deserved kindness, who deserved trust. And she had already decided that Jasmine wasn't one of them. Jasmine forced herself to stay still, to swallow down the bitter mix of anger and disbelief rising inside her. She had witnessed bias before, subtle, quiet, hidden beneath layers of politeness. But this wasn't hidden at all. It was blatant. It was a message. Victoria's sharp voice cut through the air again, pulling Jasmine back into the moment. This time the words made her blood run cold. "Keep an eye on her," Victoria instructed the security guard standing nearby, her tone cool and authoritative. "Make sure she doesn't try to leave." Jasmine's pulse pounded in her ears. The room blurred for a second as her breath caught in her throat. She wasn't just being treated unfairly. She was being treated like a threat, like a criminal. Her entire body tensed. She had to fight the overwhelming urge to shout, to demand an explanation, to make them see the injustice of it all. But she knew better. Her mother had always told her, "Stay calm. Stay composed. Don't let them see you break." So she focused on her breathing. She forced herself to stand tall, even as the weight of humiliation pressed harder against her chest. The minutes dragged on, stretching into something unbearable. The only sounds that filled the room were the occasional rustling of papers, the faint hum of conversations, and the sharp, rhythmic clicking of Victoria's heels against the floor. And through it all, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Everywhere she turned, eyes flickered in her direction. Some glances were quick, uncertain. Others were longer, filled with quiet judgment. And then there were the whispers, low murmurs just loud enough for her to catch bits and pieces. Poor girl, wonder what she did. Probably some kind of scam. Few snickers. A few pitying shakes of the head. Jasmine clenched her jaw, forcing back the sting of tears. The worst part. No one stepped in. No one questioned what was happening. To them, this was just another part of life. Just another scene they'd soon forget. But Jasmine wouldn't forget. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw something. Victoria, standing near the teller counter, speaking to Tom in hushed tones. The tension in her face was unmistakable. Her words barely above a whisper. "Why is she still here?" Victoria muttered, her frustration clear. "We need to get rid of her. Make sure she knows she's not welcome." Jasmine's stomach lurched. That was it. That was the confirmation of everything she had been dreading. This wasn't about the check. It wasn't about bank policies. It was about power. It was about control. It was about the assumption that people like Jasmine didn't belong in places like this. Something inside her snapped. She couldn't stay silent anymore. "I'm not a problem," she said suddenly, her voice shaking but steady. "Strong. I'm here because I earned this scholarship. I have every right to be here." The bank fell into a hush. But Victoria didn't even look at her. Instead, she turned to the security guard and gave a simple, chilling command. "Take her to the back. Keep her there until we finish with the paperwork." Jasmine barely had a second to react before she felt a firm grip on her arm. The security guard, tall, broad, intimidating, grabbed her without hesitation and began leading her away from the teller counter. She stumbled for a brief moment, her pulse hammering in her chest. The room blurred around her as every eye in the bank turned to watch. And yet, not a single person moved to stop what was happening. Humiliation burned through her. Anger, fear, disbelief, all tangled together in a mess of emotions she couldn't untangle. "Stand here," the guard ordered, placing her near the back of the room where she was still visible, still on display but out of the way, like she was a piece of furniture, an object. He stepped back, arms crossed, watching her, making sure she stayed put. Jasmine forced herself to stand tall, crossing her arms over her chest in defiance. She wouldn't let them see her break. She wouldn't give them that. But inside she was falling apart. Her body ached from standing still for so long, the pressure in her chest growing heavier with every second that passed.